I was asked to give an overview of the Rebbe's approach to Hachzaros HaShtochim and the whole issues that we're facing with Eretz Yisrael. It's probably more of an age thing. It's not that I'm an expert, but I've just been around long enough. I've been around the block. And I heard the Rebbe for close to 30 years, so somehow you get an idea and an understanding what the Rebbe's approach to Eretz Yisrael and the current situation, the safety situation, and how are we supposed to deal with it. So let's start from the beginning. The whole idea of settling Eretz Yisrael was something that was ingrained by Eden throughout the generations, and by Chassidim Befrat, Reb Mendel Horodoker, or Reb Mendel Vitebsker, who was at the time the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe, after the Magid, made Aliyat Eretz Yisrael, and the Alter Rebbe himself joined him, and in the middle of the way, Reb Mendel implored on the Alter Rebbe that he must stay. You have a role to spread Chassidus at what was called Lite and Reisen. The Talmidei HaMagid felt that Alter Rebbe was the only one who could stand up against the Misnagdim in those areas, and therefore, even though going to Eretz Yisrael, Reb Mendel Horodoker himself was moving to Eretz Yisrael with a lot of Chassidim, yet the Alter Rebbe was told that he cannot be one of those. But the love of the Alter Rebbe to Eretz Yisrael was very clear. We saw that the Alter Rebbe established the Kupa Keil Chabad, which is existing till today, which was to support the Chassidim who moved to Eretz Yisrael. Basically, they based themselves in Tveria. Some of them went to Hebron. And this became part of Eretz Yisrael, part of Chassidus. Igeres HaKodesh is full of letters how the Alter Rebbe tells us, Tzitkas Eretz Yisrael. Mamish to your last piece of bread. The Rebbe explains Chayech HaKodmin, what's the pshat of Chayech HaKodmin, to what degree. So this was part of Chassidus Chabad. The Mittler Rebbe sent his daughter, the Rebbe Tzemenu Charochel, to go to Eretz Yisrael. And then there was the famous story that by the time she was ready to move, the Mittler Rebbe was already in the Stalik, and she was wavering, and the Tzemach Tzedek told her she should go. And she said, I'm afraid to go. The traveling is going to be so hard. Tzemach Tzedek promised her, when you'll travel, when it'll rain, where you are, there will be no rain. There will be no raindrops falling on your head. For the purpose of going to Eretz Yisrael. And she settled in Hebron, and from that, if we may say so, this is my own observation, that what we have today, the majority of descendants of the Alter Rebbe that exist today in this world are descendants of Rebbe Tzemenu Charochel, because unfortunately, from whatever it was in Russia, there's nothing there. From the Rebbe Maharash, there's mamish, nobody. Merhob keinem nicht. And even from the children of Tzemach Tzedek, very few survived. So maybe this was l'fleita l'gdela. Then we have, historically, the Rebbe Maharash. During the times of the Rebbe Maharash, there was a movement called Bilu. Beis Yankiv L'chu V'Neilcho. They started the movement which ultimately evolved into the Zionist movement, that you have to go to Eretz Yisrael and settle. And the Rebbe Maharash expressed himself very interestingly. They said, Beis Yankiv L'chu V'Neilcho. So the Rebbe Maharash said, if they would finish the posuk, which is Be'er Hashem, I would move to Eretz Yisrael with 100,000 Chassidim. So there was a constant love to go to Eretz Yisrael.
Does that mean they didn't hold those rules?
I'm telling you what the Rebbe Marash said. I'm not going into the halachic. For that you have Rabbi Shochat. He'll give you the halachic intricacies. Then, in the times of the Rebbe Rashab, started the Zionist movement. And the Rebbe Rashab formed at the time, together I think with the Belzer Rebbe and other Rebbes and other Gdei Yisrael from Germany, the Machzike Hadas, a movement Machzike Hadas. This is something that you can read about in the Hagdom and the introduction to Kuntres Umayim. And eventually, when it started evolving into some kind of a political movement, and they were somewhat plagued with some Zionistic ideas, the Rebbe Rashab pulled out. And he went out a war, a milchemes chorma against the Zionists. And you can see one of the letters, very extensive letters, where the Rebbe Rashab explains exactly why he is against the Zionists. So it became very clear that Lubavitch is anti-Zionist. And this continued with the Friedrich Rebbe. Before the war, outspoken against Zionism. There's a Sefer Tikkun Olam from the Munkacher, where he collected all the Gdei Yisrael, all the sayings, all the writings of the Gdei Yisrael against Zionism, and of course, the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab are featured prominently there. And we are against Zionists. We do not believe in this movement that says that we have to come back to Eretz Yisrael and establish a new Jewish country. Then came the war, World War II, also known as the Shoah. Rahman al-Islam, 6 million were killed, and the Jews were kind of helpless and stateless. And the movement to create a Jewish state intensified. And it was mainly the Zionists, the secular Zionists, who supported this movement. And they worked with the world, with the League of Nations, that eventually became the United Nations, to approve or establish and vote that the Jews should have their own land. So they can have a place to go and they can defend themselves. I must add one small point. The Knessia Agdela, I think of Tofres Tzadik Zayin or Tzadik Gimel, I don't remember which year it was. The Knessia Agdela of Agudas Yisrael, the Gdei Yisrael at the time were also discussing these various suggestions, the Balfour Declaration and all kinds of chlukes that the Goyim wanted to impose on that land, how to divide it between the Jews and the Arabs. And then the Gdei Yisrael made a resolution that we cannot compromise on any of the land that the Eibishter gave us, which is determined in Torah, and that Yidden had B'Yerusha. So this is also part, the Shitta was, regardless, we're not supporting the concept of the Zionists the way they want it, which was clearly a very secularist approach. No Yiddishkeit, no Torah, Fakert, they even wanted to. We come to Eretz Yisrael, Yiddishkeit, you need it in Europe, in Golis. But in Eretz Yisrael, you don't need no Yiddishkeit, you need nothing, you just need the land. So, Frume Yidden, of course, were against it. However, the right to of the Jewish people to the land is clear. There's a Torah, and this is what our rights are. So we should not give in or compromise on the territory. Of course, you have to throw in that over the years, we saw the barbarism, the Shchita, Tofresh Peites. A week after the Friedrich Rebbe was in Hebron, there was a massacre in Hebron, and I think 67 Jews were murdered, no different than what happened a month ago here. A few weeks ago, and we saw that with the Arabs, coexistence is almost impossible. Neighbors, next door neighbors who lived together with the Jews for so many years came and massacred, butchered Yidden, Rahman al-Islam. So there's a dichotomy here. What do we do? There's a security issue. There's a religious issue. Now, after World War II, there's Asheris Apleta. We need to find a place where the Jews should go. Nobody wanted the Jews. To get into America was impossible. And in Europe was soaked with Jewish blood. Who wanted to go back there? And there was hope that when Yidden will have their own land, we go there and we'll have our place where to go. That was also not simple. With the English, the British mandate, how they even though they had a declaration to give the Yidden land, yet they prevented Yidden from coming to the land. Famous story with the ship, I forgot what the name of the ship was, that came to America, and the refugees were not allowed in, and they went to South America, and ultimately they sank. And Jews had nowhere to go. What do you do? And the Yidden succeeded to convince the nations that it's time. And there was a very big delegations and negotiations in Lake Success, New York, where the League of Nations was located. And they were discussing, they were debating. And there was a big delegation of the Zionists, of course. One of the members of this delegation was Zalman Rubashov, later known as Shazar, President Shazar. He was very active. He was a descendant of Chassidim, and he had some shaykhs, some vague shaykhs to Chassidim, even though he was not exactly a chassid and living like a chassid. But there was a connection. It was in 1947, in November, when the meeting for the vote on establishing a Jewish state was taking place, and they were very nervous, what's going to happen? Now, the details of this story, Shazar himself gave over about 7 versions. So, the exact details are not clear, but the gist of the story is pretty much the same. A day before the vote, Shazar got a telephone call. He got from Rashag, from the Frierdiker Rebbe's Eidim, who told him that the Frierdiker Rebbe, first of all, tells him, "Svet sein gut." And then he told him, after the vote, "I want to see you." The Frierdiker Rebbe invited him to come to meet him for Yechidus. In the meantime, Shazar was very nervous. He was frightened. He was scared. Are they going to succeed in getting the votes? So he remembered from his grandfather that whenever he will be in a dilemma, he should try to remember the Alter Rebbe's Nigun. And that day, he's trying to remember the Alter Rebbe's Nigun. Segeit nicht. He can't remember. And he was so frustrated. He was so here the details vary. But at one point, I don't know to whom, and one of the versions is that they were sitting actually in the same room waiting for the vote to take place. He saw an unfamiliar face in the crowd, a Yiddish face, a Jewish person. Out of frustration, he sent him a note. Ona Hashem Ishiona. The man sent him back a note. Ona Hashem Atzlichon. And this calmed him down. And the Eibishter helped that, Baruch Hashem, the vote went through, and the declaration for establishment of a Jewish state passed. So they succeeded. Shazar, of course, having the invitation of the Frierdiker Rebbe with the brocha, so he came right away, he made sure to come. And it was in Yechidus by the Frierdiker Rebbe. First thing the Frierdiker Rebbe tells him, don't think that I changed my mind. Meaning that our opinion against the establishment of a Jewish state, as we stated it all the time, still stands. But that was then. Now is a different time. Like saying, now we need it. And the Rebbe then spoke to him about, I think it was already an ongoing discussion about establishing a Kfar Chabad. And ultimately, Shazar was very effective in helping establish Kfar Chabad for the Plaitim, for the Chassidim that were then in the DP camps in Germany, survivors who had nowhere to go. And we know that the Frierdiker Rebbe, everybody wanted to go to New York, and the Frierdiker Rebbe tried to keep them away from coming to New York, but rather he pushed most of them to go to Eretz Yisrael. And some had different heroes, but that was very, not the majority. The majority went to Eretz Yisrael at the time. So here we have a change, a switch in the approach to the newly established state of Israel. We didn't become Zionists, and that has to be very clear. We do not support the Zionist idea. And clearly the reason is because the Zionist approach is not according to Torah. But not only on the aspect of religiosity, not only about frumkeit, but when you start examining the Zionist approach for the security of the Jewish people, the whole point of the new Jewish land is that there should be security for the Jewish people. Everything they did compromised Jewish security. Whether it was territorially, whether it was their approach, what to do, based on what the Goyim are happy with. In a way, they learned nothing from the fact that nobody in the world loves us. Nobody in the world cares for us. If Rahman al-Islam, Hitler would have succeeded 100%, the world would be relieved of the Jewish problem. Rahman al-Islam. But by them, no. Kechol hagoyim beis Yisrael. We have to be like the rest of the world. We have to do what the world wants us to do. In other words, we are subject to Golus in Eretz Yisrael. Here you're claiming you're leaving Golus. And what you're actually doing is you're dragging the Golus into Eretz Yisrael. And this was a major concern which we saw by the Rebbe, especially as years went on. Starting from the War of Independence was miraculous over miraculous over miraculous. The Frierdiker Rebbe instructed every able body to join the war effort, and Chassidim were involved, were part of everything. But after the land was established, and some years went by, obviously it was not exactly the way the Rebbe wanted. Famous efforts that the Rebbe invested, that the Frum people should unite, even though amongst the Frum people there were different groups. There was Agudas Yisrael, which was the Haredi, and then there was the Mizrahi, Hapoel Mizrahi, and they were more liberal. They were like Zionist, of course. And then there was Hapoel Aguda, who were, in terms of Haredi, but they were land workers. They were farmers. Their emphasis were not the way the Haredi concept is that Teira, and Teira, we shouldn't be involved in day-to-day activities of the world and the country. The Rebbe was begging them to unite for the elections. He didn't say dissolve the parties, of course, but he said unite for the elections because then your numbers will be greater. And after the elections, go your own way. Everybody with his agenda. And the Rebbe found value in everybody, even in the left wing, in the anti-religious. I mean, the Rebbe worked with them. Just a historical note, the Rebbe and Lubavitch got from Mapai, from the ultra-leftists more than they ever got from the right-wingers. You're talking 75 years, whatever Lubavitch got for the material well-being and even for the spiritual, for Moses, came from the leftists. That was just a fact. The Rebbe found value and use everything. It's incredible. I mean, if you analyze it properly, you see historically, you're going to find it. Then came the war, the Sinai War, 1956, where miraculously Israel succeeded together with the British to conquer the Sinai, and also Israel originally was a tiny sliver, 9 miles wide, and miraculously the Arabs attacked, and Israel together with the Brits won the war big time, but in no time Israel surrendered. They gave back all the land, and the Rebbe was very outspoken against it. Then, you're talking 1956, I mean, the Rebbe was not yet the Rebbe as we know the Rebbe. But the Rebbe didn't hold back. And he kept pushing and pushing that Israel has to do whatever they can for security. Then there was the terrible tragedy in Kfar Chabad, the Fedayin, they murdered 5 students and a teacher in the Beit Sefer Lemlocha. You saw you're dealing with butchers. There's nobody to make peace with. There's nobody to negotiate with. They just want you, as they say today, from the river to the sea. They don't want the existence, not of the Jewish land and not of the Jewish people. And let's not forget that during Hitler, the Mufti was as they say, Panya Brat, they were brothers, brothers in arms. And now they found in the records, they found a letter from Himmler, not Hitler, but Himmler, a letter to the Mufti congratulating him for the united stand against the Jews. Said, this is something you're not going to change. There's nothing changing. The only thing that has to change is that we have to exercise power. And then came the 67 war. Now, the 67 war, I can already relate as living it through, remembering it. I was only 10 years old. But the impact that it made on me, and very interestingly, 2 weeks ago, Rabbi Perlstein, the Menahel of the yeshiva in Chicago, wrote some of his memories of that time. He was 12 years old. And I remember Rabbi Perlstein. We lived on Crown Street. He also lived on Crown Street. Crown Heights at that time was still full of normal Jews. It wasn't only Lubavitchers or Schwarzes, but there were real Jews. And who were the Jews? Sheides HaPleita. Survivors, Hungarian Jews, Polish Jews, numbers. Everybody had a number. You're talking 21 years after Hitler. And the atmosphere was, in preparation for the 6-day war, 23 Arab armies from 3 fronts are ready to attack the Jewish state. Und Rachmana litzlan, what Hitler didn't succeed, they will succeed. There was fear. There was fear in this street. It was palpable. Just to illustrate, I remember on Crown Street, there was one Satmar family. I remember during those days, the days of tension, the Satmar lady walked out of her house, all dressed up, going shopping. And there was like the broken telephone. All of a sudden, this is something, I just happened to see it. All the doors started opening. Ladies walked out of their homes, and they started screaming at her, how dare you? In a time like this, when our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael are such sakona, You get rest, you go shopping, shame on you. They embarrassed her. I don't remember what she did, but it was just an image. The fear. Sie gewann schrecklich. They experienced it. It's not something they read in the books. These were survivors from the camps. So Rabbi Perlstein relates, and I remember it exactly the same, except for some of the details I was not part of. He describes like this: before the war, it was very tense, and it was the night of Lag Beimer. Lag Beimer was Sunday, so Motzei Shabbos, the night of Lag Beimer, there were some Rebbes here. He doesn't say which Rebbe. So he went to a tish of one of those Rebbes. And that Rebbe was talking about how terrible it is. Yankif and Klal Yisrael is in Sakona. And he painted a dark picture, a frightening picture. It's fearsome. Se finster. Bekitzer, he walked away from that tish completely, a 12-year-old, but he felt very down and scared. The next morning, he was at Bobover. This I remember. They belonged to Bobover. His mother asked him if he wants to go to the parade. I think he writes, I don't know why I said yes, but I said yes, and I went. I came to the parade, and I'm listening to the Rebbe. And this is a sikha it's all on tape, and it's on video, how the Rebbe was screaming. And this, I remember myself. The tish, I don't remember. But the parade, I remember as a child, the Rebbe was screaming, Eure Brüder und Schwestern gefinden sich in a speziellen Matzev von dem Ebersten, der Eberste beschützt sie. The Eberste is protecting them. And the Rebbe went on to say, Ushchaftem vein machrid, v'nosati shalom ba'oretz. And he's right, reassuring and comforting. And we should, ihr sollt meisiv sein in Teire und Mitzvahs, und azeh wird helfen eure Brüder und Schwestern. I mean, it was incredible words. Words of hope. Positive words and reassuring words. So he writes, I walked away. It's a different world. It's a different picture. There's hope. We shouldn't worry. Just do what you need to do. The way he described it is exactly, those are my sentiments, and this is my memories from them. Versteht sich? What happened next? This again I remember. They came from the Israeli radio, and they bet, in those days, making a copy from a tape. Copying tapes, you had those reel-to-reel tapes, and there were no, it was a whole contraption to be able to make a copy of a tape, and they were begging to make copies of tapes because they want to play it on the Israeli radio. The local radio, WEVD, also came and asked for a copy. I remember we in Olatera, we sat down on Monday. The whole school went out to the backyard on 1267 Eastern Parkway, and somebody brought a radio, and we were all sitting and listening. It was 11 o'clock, and they were playing the tape. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is giving hope. He's guaranteeing, he's promising us it will be good. And they played the tape in Eretz Yisrael. And this made a revolution. You can find newspaper clips like, the whole world is preparing for Shoah Rahman al-Islam. All the embassies instructed their citizens to leave Eretz Yisrael. The American embassy contacted every American citizen, leave. And people were leaving en masse. All the yeshivas emptied out from the American students. There were 4 students who learned in Terasomes. Shmuel Langsam, and there's Shmuel Rodel Sholem and Schwartzy, what's his name? Shleimus Schwartz Sholem, and there was one English guy, a Haims, I think. And they sent a telegram to the Rebbe asking what they should do. Teras Emes was 20 yards from the border. Teras Emes was on Rehov Mea Shorim, I think number 14. And at the end of the road was a wall. That was Jordan. And there were holes in the wall where the Jordanians put in ammunition to shoot. And they're asking the Rebbe what they should do. And the Rebbe sent them back a telegram, which is published, that the Rebbe tells them, you should stay put, you should sit and learn, and this will protect the 20 yards from the border. This again made a revolution in all the newspapers. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is reassuring and saying everything will be good and the Israelis will come out with a tremendous victory. You can't imagine what that was. This is like a fresh, refreshing voice. Somebody who's saying something else. A Novi who is speaking, giving hope. And the Rebbe spoke with such confidence. I mean, you can watch the video. It's incredible. And the world is on wheels. They're looking at the Rebbe from both perspectives. On the one hand, what's this guy talking about? I mean, he's like dreaming. On the other hand, hey, we have to hang on to anything that gives us hope. The Rebbe shall be geholfen a week after the Lag Beimer, on Monday morning. It's again a moment I remember waking up. It was a beautiful day, and we slept with open windows. We didn't have air conditioning. And from the next door, gewesen Polish Yidden, Bobbe Veriden, and Gerech Siddim. And the radio was blasting that Israel attacked the Egyptian air bases. It's Hongem HaMelchama. HaMelchama is a shreklach. I mean, you don't know. We said Tilim. Recess was about Tilim. And that's what we were busy with. And then it took 6 days. 6 days, and then on the fourth day, Harabayit Biadenu, they captured the Yerushalayim. And again, the Rebbe's approach then was, especially about Yerushalayim, the Rebbe was so upset. Yerushalayim were the biggest terrorists. They were the same as the Chevroner of 1929. And the Rebbe was begging them, bomb Yerushalayim. Bomb the place. And they refused. They were afraid maybe they're going to hit a mosque or some other Arab holy place. And they can't do it. So they went hand-to-hand combat. The total deaths of that war were 700. 300 of them were in Yerushalayim alone. And the Rebbe was pushed crying. Obviously, in a war, there are casualties. But these 300 were unnecessary. It's like everything has its place. War is never good. But this was completely inappropriate. A wrong decision. And the Rebbe started an approach. So first of all, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is no longer the Rebbe of a little group of Chassidim. The Lubavitcher Rebbe became the Rebbe of the world. Look at this man. A week ago, he predicted, and he came through. This was incredible. The Lubavitcher Rebbe became the Rebbe. He said to this. You have no idea the euphoria of the Jewish people, even the Reform movement, who erased any reference to Zion. They were anti-Zionists, by the way. They erased any reference to Zion, to Tzion, to Yerushalayim, to the Avedas Beis Hamikdash. They erased it from their Siddur. After the 6 Day War, they became Zionists. They had to rewrite their Siddur. And Jews woke up, Mizgivorim Yidden. Miftzat film that the Rebbe declared a week before the war became the call of every Lubavitcher Chassid, and especially in Etzrol, and by the Kesel, for the 3 months from Shavuos until Rosh Hashanah, in 3 months, 1 million Jews put on film by the Kesel. The Yisraelis was incredible. And then, of course, we have the Maimorim of Chedesh Tishrei Tovshin Chof Ches, when the Rebbe, 3 Maimorim v'hoyo b'yemahu, even on Simchas Torah, the Maimor was v'hoyo b'yemahu, Yitoka b'Shefer Godel, and the Rebbe referred to the current events as a Shefer Godel of awakening. And the Rebbe was encouraging us that we have to utilize it to put the Tshuva movement into effect, to bring Yidden closer to Yiddishkeit. But at the same time, the Rebbe started talking about the government. Something the Rebbe didn't do so much in public in the past. He started talking about that the first thing they sent messengers to the UN that we're going to give back the land. He said, why are you doing this? Why are you giving back anything? Nobody wants to take it from you. Nobody wants it. And the Rebbe started arguing and arguing. This is endangering the Jewish people. It's endangering the Jewish land. It's a gebeten und gebeten und gebeten. Gar nicht geholfen. I mean, in Indian, nobody was taking it. That was the nest. The Rebbe always said, the nest is, as they will nicht nehmen. The Arabs don't want to take it. The Jordanians didn't want it back. The Egyptians didn't want it back. The Palestinians were a non-entity. Akitzer, nothing was happening. Then came the war of attrition in 1970, where they started a war. The Arabs started a war of attrition, attacking Israel, not as armies, but as terrorists. And it was a terrible situation. And Israel then decided to build what they called the Kav Bar Lev, as the Rebbe referred to, like the Ligne de Maginot that the French built in World War II to protect themselves against the Nazis. And the Nazis, in no time, they focused on one part of the wall, and they just crushed it, and the wall was worth nothing. And they invaded France in no time. The Rebbe said, this is the same mistake you're doing now. You're repeating the same mistake. It's called the Kav Bar Lev. It was a concept of General Bar Lev. And the Rebbe was warning and crying and begging, please, please, don't do this. You need soldiers, you need to be ready, you need to train and prepare, but not these tricks are not going to work. This is supposed to create a sense of security. We're fine. Ultimately, again, the American presidents and their secretaries of state came with all kinds of ideas. I forget the names of all these different plans they came, how to divide the land, how to give back land. And the nest was the Arabs didn't take. Then came the Yom Kippur War. I'm sure you heard a lot about the Yom Kippur War, how the Rebbe prepared for the Yom Kippur War, how the Rebbe warned about it, Lahash B'Soyev Misnakim, and the Rebbe Poshet prepared for it. The Rebbe saw it coming. And the Israeli government supposedly was caught off guard. And it was a terrible situation. The exact same euphoria that we had after the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War destroyed the Jewish people. We have 3,000 casualties, such a devastation, loss of land. It broke the Jewish people. So I'm not going to go into the spiritual that the Rebbe followed up and the Lubavitch that you know today, which means miftzoim and outreach for every single person with the 10 miftzoim, 12 miftzoim, started then. Started after Yom Kippur War, starting with Miftzah Chanukah, and over the years we came 5 miftzoim, and then okay, this is a separate topic. But the Rebbe continued to fight and argue and beg and beg and beg and beg. Nobody listened. Finally, the new right-wing government of Begin was elected in 1977. Finally now things are going to improve. Jimmy Carter at the time, he called a meeting in Camp David where they are going to settle for a peace because Sadat decided that he is ready to make peace with Israel. So they're going to have a summit in Camp David, and Menachem Begin on his way to Camp David stopped off by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe encouraged him and supported him and welcomed him. But when it came in Camp David, Begin broke. Started talking the new language. And the Rebbe really started fighting. And this is where we're coming. This is the main point, which I think is very important. What we heard from the Rebbe in general comes down to 2 points. One point is like the Rebbe always repeats. Learn the first Rashi and Bereshis. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak la yotzorich la haschil es ha-teira elo ma'chedesh ha-zelochem. Teira is about mitzvahs. Mitzvahs start ma'chedesh ha-zelochem, a chumash and a half later, in the middle of chumash Shleimus. Why does the Torah start from Bereshis? Keach ma'asov higid la'amei. The Eibishter wants to give us the power and the strength that the Goyim are going to come and they're going to say, Listim atem. This land is not yours, you stole it, so you explain to them that B'tzeine nosno lahem u'b'tzeine. You tell them the history, how the Eibishter divided the land, and for temporary he gave it to them, and they gave it to Avram Avinu. So the Holy Land is ours. When you focus on this, mistakenly, many people have the approach that, there's a Zionist, this is exactly what the Zionists want. It's our land, and we have to fight for it at any price. Unfortunately, this is a mistaken concept. The Rebbe is trying to explain to us why the land is ours. I mean, if somebody is going to stick you up with a gun, he's going to come to you, give me your wallet. It's my wallet. Why do you want it? It's mine. You don't give me your wallet, I'll blow your head off. So what are you going to say? Blow my head off? I'm going to hold on to my wallet. Of course you give him the wallet. But you have to know what you're fighting for. If you could overpower him, go ahead. But it's yours. You have to know why you're here, what it's about, and know that the Eibishter is there. Then there is an issue of Pikuach Nefesh. That's another issue. And for that, the Rebbe started with Shulchan Aruch Siman Shin Chof Tes, which comes from the Gemara, about Nahar Doeh, B'chlal, it's a place in Chutz La'aretz, that the halacha is that if there's an enemy surrounding you, and not even threatening to kill and murder, but he wants to take away Kashvet Teven, you have to get out on Shabbos, Mechal Shabbos, and fight. So the Rebbe took this halacha and applied it to the situation at Yisrael. At Yisrael, the situation where Jewish lives are in danger, and for that you have to fight in whatever way you can to protect the lives. This was the Rebbe's approach that the Rebbe spoke all the years. There's one thing the Rebbe never said. When the argument was going on, there were many. Namely, Ovadia Yosef. Ovadia Yosef argued, Tum Faket. Because of Pikuach Nefesh, you have to give land. You're going to give away land and there will be peace. It's an argument. It's a halachic argument. The problem is the facts don't hold up. You're talking nonsense. With all due respect, he was talking nonsense, and 10 years later, he admitted that he was wrong. The Rebbe is arguing land is necessary for protection. And if you give up land, you're giving up protection. He's trying to say you'll get peace. The Rebbe says you're never going to get peace. There's no peace on the table. But the Rebbe never said this line that we're going to see here in this letter. This was a letter that the Rebbe wrote. I know it from inside because I was there. He wrote this to my uncle, Rabbi Shwei, the Rosh Yeshiva in Montreal, Rabbi Isaac Shwei. I saw the Ksav Yad. It says, Leharo Shwei. He asked in the name of Rav Hirschsprung, who was a very good friend with Prime Minister Begin, and there was a Ben Milner, a big Vir, a big supporter of Begin, and Begin came for a visit in Montreal, and they were going to meet. So Rav Hirschsprung asked the Rebbe for clarity. Give me clarity. What is my message? And this is what the Rebbe answered. And there is a line there which the Rebbe never spoke publicly. Because obviously the minute he's going to say it publicly, people are going to take it to the wrong places. So publicly the Rebbe never stated it. But to understand what the Rebbe's shita is, I think this is the only letter, I think this is the only place where we find such an idea. And it's good to know. So the Rebbe writes that the military, I'm not going to read word for word, it's already late, but the Rebbe says, I spoke to military men, to the experts, to the mumchim. They all said that any territorial compromise is pikuach nefesh, without a doubt. Which is no contradiction that there's a possibility to get peace in return. So the Rebbe says that's not going to work. What you are being promised is like a pipe dream. And the Rebbe says, the Rebbe brings a morsel, it's like a doctor, expert doctor is going to say that for medical reasons, to save the person's life, you must operate. You must be Mechal Yom Kippur. Halacha. But since we're talking about an individual, and maximum we can prolong his life for a short while, so therefore, as a Yireh Shamayim, as a frum Jew, maybe it's not worth to be Mechal Yom Kippur. The Rebbe says, obviously, this can be a consideration. A doctor, as the Rebbe spoke at length, a doctor is not a rov. Your job is not to be a rov. Your job is not to be Yireh Shamayim. You're a doctor. A doctor, your job is to deal with it medically. Medically, it's necessary. Halacha says that Yom Kippur has to be desecrated. And then the Rebbe goes on to, and this he refers to actually to the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, that they withheld the army from attacking Yerushalayim. They were shooting out of mosques, but they wouldn't shoot back. Why? Because the UN, the Vatican, will be angry. And as a result, there were dozens of deaths. But the answer is, well, because of politics, we had no choice. So the Maskona, the Rebbe says, a doctor has to paskin as a doctor. The minute he starts entertaining politics or diplomacy or even halacha, this is against halacha. And the same thing with the military experts. When a military expert who is currently in the army, a military expert, and he has not been plagued by politics, if he will say that from a military perspective, you should give away land, the Rebbe says, the Rabbonim have to evaluate if it matches the halacha in Sin Choftes, and it doesn't endanger the Jews, and if their conclusion is, like this military man says, and this is the conclusion, the Rebbe concludes, if it's for sure not a matzav of pikuach nefesh, you are obligated to give away. You have to compromise. So here the Rebbe makes it very clear. We have one issue and one issue alone. It's not the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. It's not the politics of what America is going to say. It's not the politics of what the UN is going to say. And it's not the politics of a general who was looking forward to become a defense minister or a prime minister. It has to be, and we actually saw it, how the Rebbe very much supported Arik Sharon as long as he was not in politics. And he went against the instructions of the army. In Yom Kippur War, he was told not to cross the Suez Canal, and he didn't listen. And he saved Israel. So legally, he could have been punished. But he was not in politics. Or he jumped out of politics. He jumped back into the army. And professional military men, they are the deciders. And this is our only calculation. And when they say some theoretical, something that is so far from reality, and it's not shaykh. I mean, we know the way the world is that it's never going to happen. But no, have in your mind, we are not Kahana. We are not ultra-right-wingers. We are not Zionists. We are Jews. And yes, the Holy Land is a place, it's ours. And there is a kibbutz of, today, Kinahara, 8 million Jews. They need to be protected. And this is what it's about. And this obviously has ramifications. We're talking about fighting now, eradicating the current danger and making sure that it never returns. Yeah, there are dilemmas. What do you do with the hostages? How do you deal? The only way to deal with it is professionally and not politically. The minute we have political cheshbenas is a problem. You know, one of political cheshbenas, okay, we're not here to talk about politics, but you know, you think you're gonna endanger the hostages because first of all, you can endanger them, and second of all, how are you going to look like in the eyes of the families and in the eyes of the public, and what's going to happen at the next election? It's a terrible, terrible problem. This is what they think about. And you don't think straight. The Rebbe always argued, if you're going to go full force, they'll give you the hostages. There's a point, there's a red line by them too somewhere. They're going to see you mean business. They're going to listen. So the fear, the reasons that are stopping you from doing what needs to be done cannot be political. It must only be military, professional, pikuach nefesh, to protect Yidden in Etzrol and the world over. And the Rebbe should hope that they should succeed. They should have the right mind and do the right thing. Then Yeshua Faklal Yisrael. This is Chelik Tes Vov. Hisofes Lech Lecha. Sure. Between Zionism today and Malchus itself in the Chashmonaim were wrong. Rebbe didn't recognize them.
They were also wrong. Was wrong.
Sigevesen, there was plenty. I mean, Lepoil, there was a kibbutz of Yidden.
So Rebbe said, go all the way back. Go right after Shleimus. What would they do?
We can discuss each and every one on its own merits. Malchei Yisrael. You see, Malchei Yisrael. Even Malchei Yisrael.
So if Netanyahu was from Shevet Yehuda, then it's okay?
No. First of all, he's not a melech. And second of all, he's not a shemer teru mitzvahs. I mean,
the Shaila is the Shomer Shvuos. We don't hold them? Or?
Who says?
I'm asking.
The Shomer Shvuos is...
Listen, the Rebbe addressed...
You didn't let me.
Sorry, go
You
ahead.
kept on talking, so I couldn't answer.
What's the difference?
First of all, who says there is a difference? What do you mean? You mean a difference why today can be like
Why
that?
today can't we have a Jewish state when they had a Jewish state then?
Who says you can't?
What?
You definitely could. You
So
could have
what?
a Jewish state because the Jews need a place to be. You can establish
So
a
then
Jewish
why,
state in New
so
York.
why, so why are we not pro-Zionist? Let's not say anti, why are we not pro-Zionist?
You say the word when you say the word Zionist, you have to take it in its full context.
Which is?
The Rebbe Marash said
What's the full
that
context?
the Rebbe Marash said if they would say Beis Yaakov l'chuv v'necho be'oir Hashem would be a different story.
And tell me the Yidden and Bayis Sheni were B'oir Hashem?
So that's why there is enough criticism.
It wasn't.
There is enough. Hurdus is gewesen a Melech. Hurdus was an Eved. Yana is gewesen a Melech. He was an Eved. The Chashmonaim took something without any rights. And Rabbi Yehuda, Rebbe in the Mishnah Taki, he doesn't mention them. He doesn't recognize them. The Kohanim had no business being lochim. And that was a mistake. Listen, you have all these issues, there's no question. If it was not according to Torah,
So why are we saying davening about the first one and we praise them?
But one second,
then okay, you have to be able to.
First
You
of all,
know, I love to use this phrase.